Today, we're going to show you a super easy, fast way to make scrunchies out of your leftover fabric scraps. This is part of our scrap busting series where we show you all kinds of ways to use leftover fabric scraps to make projects that are both beautiful and useful. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any other scrap busting videos. Before we get to the full scrunchie tutorial, here's a tip for using your tiniest fabric scraps to make a patchwork scrunchie. All you need to do is patchwork your fabric pieces together so they look like this. This is a great way to use all those odd shaped scraps that you might have. Check out the first video in our scrap busting series to learn how to do this. You'll see in the scrunchie tutorial that you need strips of fabric that are 4 inches wide in various lengths. So all I did here was patchwork a few scraps to make a long piece I can use for my scrunchie. Now here's the full tutorial.
So first you're going to need some fabric scraps. For your fabric scraps, you can really use a huge variety of different types of fabrics: velvet, silk, you can even use knits. What I have here are some yarn dyed fabrics that are about the weight of quilting cotton. I think quilting cottons are fabulous for this type of project. You need your scraps to be at least 18 by 3 inches in order to make a, decent sized scrunchie. After that, you're going to need some elastic. You can either use 1/4 inch like I have here, or 3/8 inch. The wider width is better if you have thicker hair. And you just need 8-inch long lengths of elastic. And then you'll need a bodkin or a safety pin. I personally prefer a bodkin, but a safety pin works totally fine as well.
I think nailing the size is the hardest part about making scrunchies, so let's get into cutting.
Yeah, definitely. So I have made a lot of scrunchies, and what I have here are my tried and true sizes. So first here I have what I like to call the jumbo scrunchie. And for this, I use a 40 by 6 inch piece of fabric. Then for my classic size scrunchie, I really like to use a 28 inch by 4 inch rectangle. And for this cute little mini, I like to use an 18 inch by 3 inch rectangle. You can totally experiment with the sizes of the rectangles to get different looks, but as a general rule, I like to keep the height of my rectangle between 3 and 6 inches and the length between 2.5 and 6 times the length of my elastic. It's also worth noting that all of these sizes that I just showed you are based off of an 8-inch length of elastic, which is what I have here to demonstrate today. If you're using a different length elastic, if you have a lot of hair or maybe you want to make them a little smaller, then you'll want to take that into consideration. So first we are going to start by sewing our rectangle into a loop. So we're going to match those short ends, right sides together, and we're going to sew. I use a 3/8 inch seam allowance when I'm sewing scrunchies. Now when I'm sewing scrunchies, I am super lazy and I don't press anything with an iron. I find that a finger press does the job just fine. So I'm just going to take my fingers and press that seam allowance open. Next, I am going to take the side with the seam and face it down on my table. And I have 2 layers of my scrunchie here. The top layer I am going to fold into thirds just to get them out of the way. And then that has revealed the cut edge of both of the underlayer pieces. And I'm just going to fold this in half, right sides together, and I'm going to place a pin just at that seam allowance so that it aligns. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew along this cut edge at 3/8 of an inch. And I want to make sure that I'm only sewing through 2 layers as I do this. I don't want to catch that layer that is hiding away in there. So start with a little back stitch and sew along this length. Then once you get to the point where you don't think you can sew any longer without catching additional layers, you are going to put your needle down just to stabilize everything, and you're going to pull fabric through. And make sure as you do this, you're tucking that inner layer away so you're only sewing through 2 layers. Then you'll just repeat that action again. Needle down and pull your fabric through. Always tucking away that extra fabric as you go, so you're only sewing through 2 layers. That's really the trick here. Then when you arrive back at your starting point, you're gonna wanna leave about a 2-inch gap. You don't need to measure and mark this by any means, just leave something that looks to your eye roughly about 2 inches. And then do a little back stitch to secure. Before we turn this right side out, we'll trim our threads just to have good sewing hygiene. And now for my favorite part, we are going to turn this right side out. So you're just going to reach through that gap and pull out. And you'll have something that looks like this. A continuous loop. Look, my stripes even match. So now it's time to put in our elastic. So I'm going to secure my 8-inch length of elastic to my bodkin, and I'm going to insert it through that gap we left. And I like to pin the end of my elastic at the opening just so I don't lose it. Now we can feed our elastic through with the help of our bodkin. And you'll notice that I did not stress about pressing here. I think that this is a project. This is the only time you'll hear me say this, that pressing doesn't really add a whole lot to the finished product. Now I am back at the start. I'm going to pin the 2 ends of my elastic so that they're overlapping by about a 1/2 inch. And I'm just double checking that my elastic doesn't feel like it's twisted. If it is twisted, again, I don't think it particularly matters. And I'm going to use a straight stitch to back stitch over the end of the elastic to secure it a few times so that it's really strong. Now, all that's left to do is close this little gap that we've created when we were sewing our scrunchie. So I like to just, again, use my fingers to finger press this edge to give it a nice little crease for me to line everything up with. And those raw edges are tucked away inside of the channel. Then I edge stitch to close it all up. Then trim your little threads and you are done. You've made a scrunchie.
When you join, you get access to our entire catalog of over 200 modern sewing patterns, from quick and easy tops to wear anywhere dresses to tailored blazers and pants. We help you to design and craft your own wardrobe. Membership also gets you access to Design Your Wardrobe, our popular course that walks you through a process for laying out a seasonal wardrobe that you can sew. Plus, membership includes our library of dozens of sew-along classes, and best of all, access to our private sewing community, including tens of thousands of members, where you can post projects, ask questions, and even find sewing friends near you. I hang out there all the time along with Haley and the rest of the team here at Seamwork, and I'd love for you to join me. YouTube subscribers get half off a Seamwork membership, making it an incredibly good deal. To sign up, just click the button on screen or the link in the description below to claim your offer. I hope you loved this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.